Hello friends, Monodux here with a quick patch breakdown for you. This is the patch that I used in the last jam, which was a Berlin style sequence in 7. And I'm just using my new Behringer 960 sequencer with the 962 sequential switch. They work perfectly together, and they work really great with the ARP 2600. This is not going to be a deep dive or anything like that. I just wanted to share kind of some basic entry-level stuff that you can do with it. And I'll show you how that patch was put together. Alright, so let's have a look. Firstly, the 962 has got 3 rows of 8 steps, and I'm using the sequential switch to switch between the rows that are programmed. So if I press play, and I'm using the Arturia Keystep to drive timing on this, and that's really all it's doing. I am taking a MIDI signal from my digatone as usual, running it into the Arturia, and then from the Arturia I'm taking a sync output. So the only thing I'm using is the sync output, and that's running into the shift controller on the sequencer. So what that does is it sends the MIDI clock via CV now, thanks to the keystep, and that's what controls how fast we move between the steps. And I'm using the arpeggiator to send timing signals. So if I just press play on the arpeggiator, that is what's controlling the timing of this. If I change tempo on the the digatone, then that'll translate over as well. And then what I've got is basically each one of these rows has an output into one of the line ends on the 962. So right now you can see that sequence number 1 or row number 1 is lit up, and I can just press a button. Let me get this to where you can hear it. Just press a button to switch to the next row. So I've transposed up row 2, and then I can switch to row 3, and now you're hearing only row 3, and then of course I can go back to row 1. And you can automate that with triggers too. You don't have to press it all the time. Lots of different things you can do with that. You will also notice in the video that I'm able to achieve ratcheting on the sequencer using the Arturia. Since it's running an arpeggio right now, I've got it set on the 1/8 time, which is the same. I've got 8 steps, so I'm just running it like that. If I twist the time division knob on the Arturia arpeggio, that essentially gives me ratcheting. So I found I can do 1/8, here's 1/16, still running the same sequence, but it's being, the gates are opening more often. So there's 1/16 or 1/32. I find outside of those 3 it gets kind of crazy. So that's how I'm getting ratcheting. And I think that works just because the arpeggiator is sending gate signals, and I'm not sending anything apart from the timing out, which is controlling the shift. So if I send more signals, it's giving me 2 or 3 times as many openings on the one step. Okay, so we've got timing running in to control the shift on the sequencer. The patch is really simple. I'm just running a saw wave from oscillator 1. I'm running a square wave from oscillator number 2, and then I've got some pulse width modulation coming from the LFO, and then oscillator number 3 is going in as a saw wave, and I've just got them mixed to taste. I am running gate signals from the keystep into the trig in, which I've jumped up to the ADSR. This is my standard setup, and I'm running the output of that ADSR to the linear input of the amplifier. That's kind of how I like things to run. So that's just from a multiple. And then the output of each of these three lines is coming from the sequential switch, and that I'm running into a multiple, which sends out VC control to the pitches of each of the oscillators. So that means that, you know, the essential circuit, if I've got row number 1 going, is going from here to here, and then they're split to the oscillators. And then as you switch from row to row, it's just sending a separate output. Pretty handy. You can do a lot of stuff with that. So for purposes of the video that I just did, I didn't really deviate from the rhythm, but of course you can skip steps and turn things on and off. And since I've programmed it on all three lines, it'll transpose. So that's the way I set it up, basically. I will be messing with timing more in future videos, but this one I just wanted to do something and try out the multiple lines of sequencing. If you are thinking of this for your ARP 2600, I think it's pretty great. One thing to be aware of is that the oscillator, which controls the sequencer, has a lower output than normal for the 2600. You certainly can use it, but you'll need to run it into the preamp to boost the signal before you can get good gates from it. And we'll talk about that in another video. If you use something else to control the timing besides the oscillator, there's no need for any special patching. It just takes care of itself. So that's the one thing to be aware of. I will try to link to a video from Vykaar Tones. I'm not sure how that's pronounced, but he's got a great explanation of it and was kind enough to reply to my questions in his video, so I'll link that here. And anyway, that's the 960. I'll be doing a lot more with this in the future. I absolutely love it with the 2600. I think it's great, really good, and quite different from the SQ1. So I'm pretty happy with the purchase. I think it was well worth it. Anyway, hope these greetings find you well. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will be doing much more explanation of this as I learn it myself. All right, take care.